I am 82 years old, and today I want to tell you something, but that nobody wants to admit. Everyone around you will say that growing old alone is a terrible tragedy. They will tell you that an empty house is a sad house, and they will look at you with deep pity when you tell them you have no plans for the weekend. I am here to tell you that living alone is not a tragedy, and peace is often found the moment you lock your front door and refuse to let the noise of the world back in. I want to invite you into my morning. It is 5 in the morning, and the world outside my window is completely dark. The streetlights cast a long, pale shadow across my driveway. Inside my house, there is a profound and heavy silence. It is not the silence of a graveyard, but the silence of a sanctuary. I wake up without an alarm. I walk down the hallway, and I know exactly which floorboards will creak under my feet. I walk into my kitchen, turn on the small light above the stove, and begin my ritual. I take a ceramic mug from the cupboard, the one with the chipped handle that I have used for 20 years. I pour hot water over dark, rich coffee grounds. I stand there in the dim light, watching the steam rise, smelling the sharp, bitter scent of the coffee. I do not turn on the television. I do not look at the telephone. I take my cup and I walk into the living room. I sit down in a dark green armchair that has perfectly molded to the shape of my back over the last decade. I sit in the quiet and I wait for the sun to rise over the elm trees in my front yard. I watch the light slowly turn the room from gray to gold. I listen to the steady rhythm of the grandfather clock in the hallway. That ticking sound is my only companion, and it is a companion that demands absolutely nothing from me. For a very long time, I let people convince me that this quiet routine was a symptom of depression. My wife passed away 12 years ago after a long and exhausting illness. We had a good life, a loud life, filled with the chaos of raising 3 children and the daily struggles of paying a mortgage. When she left, the silence she left behind was terrifying at first. It felt like a physical weight on my chest. But as the years passed, the silence changed its nature. It stopped being a void, and it became a blanket. It became the only place where I could truly breathe. I learned to love the stillness. I built a small wood shop in my garage. I spend hours running my hands over raw oak and cedar, sanding the wood until it is smooth as glass. I read massive historical biographies that take months to finish. I eat my meals when I am hungry, not when the clock dictates. I sleep when I am tired. I have total sovereignty over my own existence. But the world cannot stand an old man who is content in his own company. Society is deeply uncomfortable with solitude. They view it as a problem that must be solved. My daughter is a wonderful and caring person, but she views my life as a project that needs constant management. She would come over on a Sunday afternoon, bringing groceries I did not ask for, and a nervous energy that vibrated through my quiet house. She would sit on the edge of my sofa, look around at the empty room, and sigh, a very heavy, theatrical sigh. She told me I was isolating myself. She told me it was unhealthy for a man my age to spend so much time alone. She said I needed a reason to get out of bed in the morning, completely ignoring the fact that my reason was simply to enjoy the day on my own terms. Then came the neighbors and the people from the local community center. They were always offering me flyers for senior dances, group bus trips to casinos, and weekly card games. They would catch me watering my tomatoes in the front yard and trap me in endless conversations about how important it is to stay active. They spoke to me as if I were a fragile piece of glass that would shatter if it was not constantly supervised. They told me Margaret, about a woman named Margaret. They said Margaret was a widow, a retired school teacher, very spry, very energetic, and looking for companionship. They pushed and prodded and guilted me until I finally surrendered. I thought that maybe they knew something. I did not. I thought that maybe my peace was actually just an illusion, and I was secretly rotting away in my armchair. So I agreed to call Margaret. We met for lunch at a local diner. Margaret was a nice woman. She wore a bright yellow scarf, and she talked rapidly about her grandchildren, her garden, and her various ailments. I tried my best to be the gentleman I was raised to be. I listened, I nodded, I paid the bill, and I opened the door for her. She seemed delighted. She told her friends, and her friends told my neighbors. And suddenly, I was a man in a relationship. Everyone was thrilled. My daughter stopped looking at me with pity and started looking at me with triumph. I had done what society expected of me. I had found a warm body to place in the empty chair across from me. At first, I tried to convince myself it was a good thing. We started seeing each other 3 times a week. But almost immediately, the architecture of my peaceful life began to crumble. It started with the telephone. Before Margaret, my phone was a tool I used to make doctor appointments or speak to my children once a week. With Margaret, the phone became a relentless master. It would ring at 8 in the morning while I was reading my book. It would vibrate there on the kitchen counter while I was trying to focus on a piece of woodworking. She wanted to say good morning. She wanted to tell me about a dream she had. She wanted to complain about the traffic she saw on the news. If I missed a call because I was in the garage, she would leave a worried voicemail. And I would have to spend 10 minutes explaining that I was perfectly fine, just busy. The phone tethered me to her anxiety. I felt a constant, low-level dread every time I heard it ring. My mental space was no longer my own. Then came the invasion of my physical space. Margaret meant well, but she had an overwhelming need to improve everything she touched. She started spending weekends at my house. One Friday afternoon, she brought a bag full of decorative items. She placed heavily scented floral candles on my dining table. The sharp smell of artificial lavender completely overpowered the familiar scent of old paper and coffee that I loved so much. She bought a brightly colored throw blanket and draped it over my dark green armchair, the chair that belonged only to me. She told me the living room was too dreary and needed a pop of color. I watched her rearrange my life, and I said nothing because I was trying to be the good companion everyone told me I needed to be. The exhaustion I felt during those months is difficult to describe to someone younger. When you are 82, your daily energy is a finite resource. It is like a bank account, with a strict withdrawal limit. I needed my quiet afternoons to recharge my battery. I needed to sit in absolute silence with my eyes closed for an hour, just to let my nervous system settle. Margaret did not understand this. She thrived on constant motion and constant noise. When she was in my house, the television was always on. It was never a program she was actually watching. Just the loud, aggressive shouting of the 24-hour news cycle blaring in the background. She would walk from room to room, talking loudly over the television, expecting me to engage in a running commentary about politics and local gossip. I found myself hiding in my own home. I would retreat to the garage, pretending I had an urgent woodworking project, just to escape the relentless barrage of words. I would stand in the dusty, quiet garage, leaning against my workbench, feeling my heart racing, feeling completely drained of my life force. I was spending an enormous amount of money, too. The dinners out, the driving, the small gifts. All of it was eating into the fixed income I had carefully budgeted to last the rest of my life. I was paying at a premium price to be absolutely miserable. I was sacrificing my physical comfort, my financial security,
Yeah.
and my mental clarity,
Yeah.
all to avoid the stigma of being a solitary old man. The breaking point arrived. On a rainy Tuesday morning, I had slept poorly because Margaret had insisted on keeping the television on until midnight. I woke up at my usual time, craving my silent routine. I walked into the kitchen, exhausted, looking forward to the simple act of making my coffee. I found Margaret already awake. She had taken it upon herself to reorganize my kitchen cabinets. My coffee mugs, which had lived on the second shelf, to the right of the sink, for 20 years, were gone. I stood there, bewildered, as she cheerfully explained that she had moved them to a more logical location, next to the refrigerator. She was wiping down the counters with a harsh chemical cleaner that burned my nose. The radio was playing, a loud morning talk show. I looked at her, and I looked at my displaced coffee mug, and a profound clarity washed over me. I realized that I was pretending. I was acting out a role in a play written by other people. I was letting the fear of societal judgment force me into a life that was actively destroying my spirit. I did not want her in my kitchen. I did not want the candles, the noise, the phone calls, or the forced companionship. I wanted my empty house. I wanted my silence. I wanted to be left alone, to finish my life in the exact manner of my choosing. I asked her to sit down at the kitchen table. I did not raise my voice, and I did not show any anger, because there was no anger left, only a deep, abiding exhaustion. I told her that she was a wonderful person, but I was not the man for her. I told her that my life was small and quiet, and I intended to keep it that way. I told her that I could not offer her the energy or the companionship she deserved. She was shocked. She told me I was making a terrible mistake. She said that at my age, I should be grateful to have someone who cared enough to reorganize my kitchen. She warned me that if I pushed her away, I would die alone, and nobody would find me for weeks. She used the ultimate weapon, the fear of a lonely death, to try and keep me in line. I looked her in the eye, and I told her that dying alone in a quiet house sounded infinitely better than living one more day in a state of constant, noisy anxiety. She packed her decorative blanket, her sharp-smelling candles, and her restless energy, and she left. I stood at the front window and watched her car pull out of my driveway. I waited until the red taillights disappeared down the street. Then I walked over to the front door. I turned the deadbolt, and I heard the heavy, satisfying click of the lock falling into place. I walked into the kitchen, turned off the radio, and found my chipped coffee mug. I made my coffee, poured it black, and walked into the living room. I sat down in my dark green armchair. The silence in the house was immense. It rushed back into the room, like water filling a dry riverbed. I closed my eyes, and I took a breath so deep it made my ribs ache. I felt the tension drain from my shoulders, travel down my arms, and leave my body. I was completely, utterly alone, and I had never felt more alive. Since that day, I have not allowed anyone to dictate the terms of my existence. My daughter still worries, and my neighbors still whisper, but their opinions no longer penetrate the walls of my sanctuary. I have learned a truth that takes a lifetime to understand. You do not owe the world your remaining time. You do not owe your children a socially acceptable version of old age. You do not owe your neighbors a friendly conversation when your bones are tired. You do not owe a romantic partner of the last reserves of your energy. Just because society tells you that being a couple is the only valid way to exist. If you are listening to my voice and you are feeling the heavy pressure to conform, I want you to give yourself permission to stop. Look around your home. Look at the chair you love. Look at the quiet routine you have built. If that quiet routine brings you steady, unbroken peace, you must protect it with your life. Do not let anyone convince you that your peace is actually loneliness. Loneliness is a hunger, a desperate need to be seen and understood by someone else. Solitude is a feast. It is the deep, fulfilling nourishment of finally understanding and accepting yourself. When you invite the wrong person into your space to cure a loneliness you do not actually have, you invite their chaos, their demands, and their relentless noise. You become a caretaker for their emotional needs, while your own needs wither and die in the background. You spend your days managing their expectations, answering their text messages, matching their pace, and slowly erasing your own identity to avoid conflict. It is a slow, agonizing death, out of the soul, disguised as a healthy social life. There is a great dignity in sitting alone in a room, watching the dust motes dance in a shaft of sunlight, and knowing that you are the absolute master of your domain. I decide when the day begins, and I decide when it ends. If I want to leave a book open on the dining table for 3 days, I leave it If I want to eat soup for breakfast, I eat soup for breakfast. If I want to sit on my back porch and watch the rain fall for 2 hours without speaking a single syllable, I do exactly that. This is not laziness. This is not giving up. This is the ultimate form of energy protection. This is the reward for surviving the long, brutal marathon of a working life. You spent decades compromising. You compromised with your boss, your spouse, your children, and your community. You bent over backward to accommodate the world. Now the debt is paid. The ledger is clean. You have earned the right to be inflexible. You have earned the right to be entirely, unapologetically selfish. With your peace, do not be afraid. Art of the silence. The silence is where you will find the answers you spent your whole life searching for in crowded rooms. The silence is where you will finally hear your own voice, clear and unburdened by the expectations of others. Embrace the empty chair across from you. It is not a symbol of failure. It is a symbol of freedom. It means nobody is sitting there, demanding your attention, judging your choices, or asking you to be anything other than exactly who you are in this very moment. Your energy is a precious, dwindling resource. Do not spend it on polite conversations that drain your spirit. Do not spend it on relationships that require you to perform. Gather your energy, hold it close to your chest, and spend it only on the things that bring deep, resonant joy to your soul. Spend it on a beautiful piece of wood, a good cup of coffee, a quiet walk, or the simple, quite profound act of just breathing in your own space. You are not broken. You are not a tragedy. You are a survivor who has finally found the clearing at the end of the forest. Stand in the clearing. Lock the door behind you. Let the world rush by in its frantic, noisy panic. While you sit in your favorite chair and simply exist. Peace is expensive. Stop giving it away for free.